Our next special guest here, Eric Boehm from the museum. EJ, if we could do the normal thing, or what?
It's up to you guys how you want to do it. We can do that, sure.
What do you think?
No, we don't have 3 chairs.
Yeah,
man.
so,
Yeah.
all right.
I'll vacate.
We're a little
I'll go back
short
to
on
being the
that.
sound
Yeah.
All right,
All right,
go
good
enjoy
deal.
the shuttle.
So we're going to bring another special guest on here, folks. We've got Eric Boehm, who's the curator of aviation here at the museum. Let's
So
see if we
there's
can
a plane.
wave him
He's the
on
guy to
over.
talk to
Come on
about it.
over, sir. This is our professional production environment.
Yes. Good to
We'll
see you
let
again.
him get some headsets on there and get going. Outstanding. We good to go?
I'm good to go.
All right.
right.
Good deal. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. We get to play video games, and we're on an aircraft carrier with a space shuttle behind us. I can think of worse ways to spend my day.
And I get paid for being here.
You get paid for being here. That's right. I'll come even if y'all don't pay me. Let's put it that way.
You know what? Don't tell the boss, but if I won the lottery, I'd still come
You'd
here.
still
and work.
come.
Alright.
Nice, nice. So, Eric is the curator for aviation
Yes.
for the museum, and that means what?
I think I kind of get to own the airplanes.
Own
you know?
the
And
airplanes.
we make decisions about how they're painted, how they're going to look, how we're going to display them,
Okay.
you know, what goes on the label, the stories that go with them, how they relate to other exhibits, and it's just a whole lot of fun. We
Make
also
sure
do the
that they're all-
restoration. So the airplanes, most of the airplanes, there's 27 airplanes in the collection,
27.
and most of them are outside
Right,
in New York City.
right.
That's a lot of salt water. It's a lot of pollution.
They require some maintenance.
Yeah, they're kind of rotting away right before your eyes.
Right.
So it's nonstop. We have a very small crew, but we have a dedicated crew of volunteers. So if anyone wants to volunteer,
There you go.
come on out. We'll put you to work on old airplanes. But keeping the airplanes together is a lot of work.
Excellent. So, we've got some airplanes that are on the deck, right? And we've got some airplanes that are down inside, and we've got one airplane down on the pier even.
We have a
Right?
Concorde. We
You
have a Concorde
Concorde.
airliner down on the pier. It's awesome,
Down on
an
the
amazing
pier.
thing. Yeah.
Does the Concorde, is there a walking tour or something you can do, or is that still going on?
There's a special tour. It's
A
a
special
tour
tour.
guide-led tour.
Okay.
It's limited every day, so
Right.
it's really
You have
first
to
come,
sign
first
up
served.
for it in
You have
advance
to
or
sign up
something?
for it and pay a little extra
Pay a
for
little
it.
extra, that's
But
okay.
it goes towards the
Goes
maintenance.
towards the maintenance, that makes perfect sense.
But it's a wonderful experience. I've never, all the feedback when they come out, it's just an amazing thing. So Concorde is
Fantastic.
definitely worth it.
You can actually like kind of walk through it, and the tour guide talks about. You can kind of see the inside of it, or is it like a look-in?
Well, it's a walk around the outside. You
Walk
look at
around
all
the
the
outside.
interesting features. The Concorde is very unique in a lot of ways.
Right.
And then you do get to go inside, and the tour guide will take you through a flight.
Okay.
Actually, the record flight, the New York City to London record flight.
Really?
And then after that, you get the sneak peek in the cockpit. So
Really?
the tour guide will go into the cockpit with you. We don't let you sit in the pilot seats because you can break buttons and knobs
Yeah,
climbing in.
yeah.
But you do get to get in there and see some of the unique parts. It's not your everyday
I'm
airliner.
not sure. It's not just like walk around the wheels and look at it. It's like you actually get.
It's
that's
a
actually
really great
cool.
tour.
Excellent.
One thing I was wondering, we were just talking about this before you came on, was in the hangar deck, with all the folding wings and everything. How did that work? How do you, because there's, we've got the 27 planes now. How many planes were there when it was in service, and how did you get all of them to fit?
Yeah, you notice the folding wings, right?
Yeah.
So almost all carrier airplanes have folding wings. One exception would be the Skyhawk, the A4 Skyhawk, that was actually designed to be small enough, compact enough where you wouldn't need the complexity of folding wings. But yeah, you can get 4 squadrons of attack airplanes on board, 12 to 14 airplanes per squadron. You can get a lot of airplanes on board an aircraft carrier when you fold up the wings.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of planes. Now, in addition to the planes, you also deal with the space planes, correct?
Yeah, we have 2 spacecraft on board here, so definitely Enterprise, which is just a marvelous machine. And I walk in every day, I do walk-arounds, and I look at this thing, and I just marvel at the technology, even though it's that older technology, but still an amazing vehicle. And then we also have a Soyuz capsule that a very good friend of the museum, Greg Olsen, who was the 3rd space participant, and flew up to the ISS, and then he has loaned us his capsule, which is remarkable to see this thing. It's all burnt.
Yeah, it's actually a flown capsule. It's not
It is
just
a
like
real
a
live space capsule.
mock-up
It's
that
an
was
amazing
tested or
thing.
something. And it's sitting right behind you. You can actually see it on the camera.
Yeah, over-
You can see right behind us that there is the Soyuz. It's right behind your head, actually. I don't have it up there.
Oh, you don't have it up on the...
So what we were going to do here, we play a game, right?
All right.
And we kind of do like a STEM edu gaming sort of thing live on Twitch. We call it the Kerbal Space Academy. But we want to do a couple things here that may not exactly be space. On the screen here, after I flip over, you can actually see that we've got a little bit of a mock-up of a plane. And so what we can do, it's rolling down the runway. I should probably set the brakes, right? There we go. So what we've done here, we had one of our viewers submit a craft. And this looks a little bit like, can you guess?
Well, it looks a little bit like a couple of things.
Yeah?
I see a little bit of F-16 in there, and I see...
You're done. You got it.
Well, yeah, but there's still some components of the MiG-21 with the Delta wings. So
right.
There's the intake under there with the landing gear. Yeah, mostly F-16, but a little bit other things. But it's you know what's a pretty cool looking airplane.
It's actually a really cool little thing. But what we do is we actually get a bunch of different parts. So you can see as I go across the craft, these are fuel tanks, right? And it highlights that one part in green, it highlights that one, and these are fuel tanks that carry liquid fuel. And since we're using an atmospheric kind of jet engine, we need liquid fuel, and then we would need the intakes like we've got on the bottom of the S-16 down here in order to fire the actual atmospheric jet engine, right? As opposed to a rocket engine, it would need its oxidizer and liquid fuel, right? So one of our viewers submitted this craft that's kind of in the form of an F-16, and what we can do in the game after they've built it is fly around with it. So while you're playing the game, you can kind of like come up with anything you want to do. And you can build a Soyuz, we've got one of those. You can build a space shuttle, we've got one of those. You can build a entire Soyuz launcher. We've got an International Space Station. So whatever your imagination is, the game is based on real physics, real rocket science, that sort of stuff. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna fire this craft up.
It's about time. You've been doing a lot of talking. Let's
you know what I do? It's like,
kick the
be
tires,
quiet,
light the
Dawson,
fire.
just start
Exactly,
flying,
there you go.
So we'll go ahead and just take this thing for a flight here. We'll activate the engine. We should be able to hear that. In chat, tell us if the engine sounds are low or high. We can definitely bump that up a little bit for you. We'll start up the engine. We'll go ahead and kick the brakes off. And we should start going down the runway. But you can see we've got all of our control surfaces. You've actually got to design the craft and put the control surfaces in there. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Hey,
That's not what we want to do. All right.
Sawyer, does he get all the fun of the flying? Do you ever get to fly this?
I do
Nope,
get to
just
fly
me.
too, but
Just
right
me.
now
Nope,
it's
sorry.
It's his dream.
So we actually have to design the control surfaces. We actually have things like we can adjust the flaps. So if we wanted to go through and deploy flaps, those are clearly deploying the wrong way. I'm not even sure if the F-16 has flaps there.
Oh yeah, it absolutely does, right there.
But we're just kind of demonstrating some stuff. You've got landing gear. You've got to put the landing gear in the right place. You can bring them up and down. And then you can actually fly the craft, right? And so it's pretty simple to fly around. We just use some of the arrow keys. I don't know if that's a sanctioned maneuver. That's not exactly an air show maneuver. Let me see if I can turn back around.
Whoa, nice.
That's a pretty ridiculous bit of a turn there. I'm not sure how many G's we just pulled. We can actually bring up our flight computer and it'll tell us how many G's we pulled. That was, let's see here. Right now we're doing 1.3 G's about. I don't know what the maximum G's an actual F-16 can pull. Let's see what this one can do just in a normal turn here.
Yeah, yank that thing around.
Yeah, 15
right.
G's is
Yeah,
probably
well,
a little high.
We just blacked that.
Probably a little high, yeah. It's okay. The Kerbals apparently are a different race that have different physiologies than we have. So we don't have any problems doing 15 Gs with the Kerbal. Also, I believe, can this one stand on its end? What's the thrust to weight ratio right now? Because the game's actually computing all of these numbers as we fly.
Wow.
So if our thrust to weight ratio is not over 1.0, the thrust of the engine can't overcome the weight, right? The mass times the local gravity of the planet, so it wouldn't be able to hover on its tail. And it looks like
You're actually accelerating in the vertical.
Yeah, we're at 0.9 right now.
We're slowing down a little bit because we're at a 0.9, 0.8. We're losing thrust out of that. So this guy doesn't look like he's going to stall out eventually,
There
which
he
we
goes.
try not to do. But we can do all sorts of different things. But a viewer designed this craft. Starting with just the cockpit, he went through and decided it should have the wings, it should have the intakes, it should have the jet engines, it should be able to pull 30 Gs or something, I guess. Unlike a real F-16.
Well, I think this viewer who designed this maybe should send an application to Northrop Grumman.
Yeah, seriously.
This was the robot-controlled F-16.
They're doing a lot of things with autonomy now, of course.
They really are.
Yeah? Oh, yeah.
That's one of the big reasons that we kind of do the online gaming thing, because I think a lot of young people who may be inspired to go into, whoa, that was 22.9. A lot of young people who may be inspired to go into a STEM or an engineering related field who love video games may not realize that some of the things that they do in video games, especially a game that simulates physics where you learn control, you learn problem solving, you learn to kind of engineer things. This is kind of some building blocks that you would use in the real world to get a real job as an aerospace engineer or a pilot or something like that.
Well, I recently took a tour of Sikorsky Aircraft up in Connecticut.
I've heard of them.
And they're working on autonomy for helicopters. So you're not going to lose your pilots. Your pilots are going to still have a job. But the helicopter becomes very easy to fly, and they actually let me fly the simulator, and I was able to land it without killing myself.
Wow.
But he flipped the button off and took the autonomy mode off, and it's kind of like, it's like the easy button.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Then all of a sudden it
he took
went-
the easy button off, and all of a sudden it is very difficult to fly through a helicopter. But he told me that
I'm going to try not to crash.
the guys that have been flying helicopters for years, your old-timey helicopter pilots,
Right.
are having trouble with the easy button mode because they have all that muscle memory. Yeah, and that's what you do.
Yeah, I try not to do
You
that.
turn the easy mode off.
I clicked off the window and I started controlling chat instead of the game.
You
That was
you chatted into the ground.
Killed by chat.
There
That was
you
totally
go.
killed by chat.
Hashtag blame chat.
Who said chatting wasn't fatal?
What? Don't chat and fly F-16s, as it turns out. So you were talking about autonomous systems that make flying
Flying the
more
helicopter easy, and one of the things they want to do is be able to plug in a mode or a mission,
Okay.
resupply mission or something like that. The helicopter can go and do. You're going to have your pilot
You're gonna
on
have the
board
pilot there just in
monitoring
case,
things,
right? That's a
but,
lot like spaceflight goes.
Yeah, but
It's
the
a lot-
mission will happen quicker, safer, easier. That's the plan.
That's the plan. But you actually got to fly a simulator like that.
I did. It was really a lot of fun.
Sounds like it.
Do they need live streams from their place?
Ooh, I'll get you a contact number.
I don't know.
There you go.
That would be a thing. Look, everything's fine. The pilot's fine. We can revert back. So there's different modes in the game. Right now we're just in a sandbox mode where we just get to play around. We've reverted back to the runway. Everything's fine. That was just a simulation. Nobody died. It's all good. This is one craft that we designed. I actually wanted to show you another craft, and we'll see if you can decide what it may be. Here. Wait. Well, I
So
mean,
no
if you look at the
looking,
screen, it's going to have the name on it on
Oh,
the
I'm
screen.
gonna look away.
Yeah. Wait.
So in the meantime, let's talk about
In
behind
the
us, 'cause
meantime,
In
yeah,
addition,
yeah.
you also partly curated the Hubble exhibit that's in
Oh,
here,
the Hubble
right?
exhibit was a lot of fun. I co-curated that with Mike Massimino.
There you go.
Our
Yeah.
astronaut friend.
We'll have him on Sunday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's so much fun. He's an amazing guy. The guy you see on The Big Bang Theory. That's really
Yeah.
just Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Seeing Mike. I mean,
Sawyer said, you may know him from The Big Bang Theory, as opposed to the Hubble repair missions. in
yeah,
the
right.
right.
Priorities.
But boy, Mike knows so much stuff. And
He's a cool guy, too.
He's
Oh,
a
yeah.
very cool guy.
We met him in passing, just said hi to him, kind of introduced ourselves, and
Yeah,
he's just
last
a cool
night.
guy. Like,
Yeah,
you'd be surprised.
I go out to lunch with him a couple of times, and,
Nice.
and he's just a great guy to just hang out with. Really
Oh,
great
yeah.
guy.
So I've got a craft on the screen here. I'm not sure if you can decide what this one may be.
Ignore the text. Don't read the text at the top.
Don't worry about that.
Again, it's an F-16.
Again, it's an F-16 with bigger intakes. We must have more engine power in this
It's a
thing?
lot more complicated F-16. So it kind of goes to show you can do things in the game. You can make kind of a simple sort of arcade craft, or you can make a much more complicated craft. And you can see we've got multiple cockpits kind of like put on top of each other to try and simulate more bubble canopy. We've got the bigger intake sort of thing to kind
What
of
do you
simulate
got going
that.
on the wingtips there?
On the wingtips, we've got, I guess, missile rails, which would be a normal thing on the wingtips
Sure.
of an F-16. We've got bigger landing gear. We've actually got the little I actually don't know what those are called.
They're called strakes.
Strakes.
Yeah, directional stability at higher
All right.
speeds. Sometimes
There you go.
are
We've got
required.
those on there
A
as
lot
well.
of jet airplanes, you'll see those on. Yeah.
We've got actually parts in the game. You can kind of see here. This is the build editor, where if we wanted to, we could go through and choose a capsule, which has no place on an F-16, right? Or choose probe controls, or I don't know, do you want to build a space shuttle? We've got that. And you just kind of go through and you pick different parts here that you can put together to make different designs, right? But the cool thing is this flight, or this version flies a lot more differently than the little arcade version. And the game always tries to walk a line between being fun for people to play. You don't have to be a pilot. You don't have to be an aerospace engineer in order to design a craft or make something that's fun in the game. But if you want to go all out, you can design something like this. We'll just leave Bob in there and fly an F-16 that looks like this. So let's pop this thing going.
Bob know what he's doing.
It may or may not. Does this one have the... Yes, this does actually have the afterburner simulator on it. So I should be able to turn an afterburner on and off.
Yeah, light that thing up.
Yeah, we do. We can. There's a basic jet and there's the afterburner. But we should be able to take off. In the trick that I wanted to show you, I talked about the game simulating the forces of flight, right? Well, as it turns out, the game simulates forces of flight. So all the different aerodynamic surfaces on the craft you can see are getting used. Some blue would be lift, right? And you see some things that are actually lifted in the wrong direction. Yellow is control surfaces, and as I actually pull my control surfaces up, you can see the different forces change. And you've got to design the craft in the game so that all the forces are balanced so that the plane flies. If you've got a plane whose center of lift is like way in front of the center of mass, or the center of pressure, I guess, not center of mass, but center of gravity, it'll try to nose forward constantly. And if you have a plane where the center of lift is way behind the center of mass, I think I just said those backwards. I don't know. There's a space shuttle behind me. I can say things wrong sometimes.
It sounded good.
Yeah.
You can build a little arcadey sort of craft, or you can build a really complicated craft like this and fly it around. And this thing actually flies like a dream. It doesn't turn like, I don't know, how many G's can it pull?
Oh, wow, the strakes actually move. That's
Yeah, they will actually move a little bit. Now I don't think they're supposed to move, are they?
Not on the real F-16. No.
So we could come over here, we could deactivate them. So let's go for yaw, and now they're deactivated, they shouldn't move anymore. Yeah, I turned them off. So you've got control of programming a lot of different things. And now it kind of looks like a porcupine, right? All these different forces like acting on the craft. You can actually build a craft that can turn too tightly and rip itself to pieces. Who knows that that's something you have to worry about in real life?
It is.
It is
There
something you have to
go.
worry about in real life. But it's just a fun thing. If you love like designing things, if you love Legos basically, you're excited about flight, you're excited about like space sciences and building things like that, Kerbal Space Program is a great game that you can go through and design craft, and I can turn those.
And I can
force overlays
download.
off.
I can download this.
You can download it. There's a free demo that you can download. That's kind of limited in the scope of what you can do, and in the full game, I think the full game costs like $30 to $40, depending on what day it
$29.99,
is.
I think was the last over 30.
It's like on sale sometimes. I think it's normally about $40, but it's a really cool game. In order to just kind of fly around. What else should we talk about? We're just making this up as we go. We're playing video games. I'm playing a fictional F-16 in a video game. I'm trying to see. We actually have a live chat over here as well. How are we doing?
Eddie.
Also, EJ is a big plane buff. I know you've got plenty of questions. How about I switch out with EJ for a bit?
That's cool. And we've got a couple
something else to
minutes.
deal with as well.
You do? Okay, good deal, man. Excellent. I'm going to try not to crash again.
Here, I'm going to swap out, and I'll be right back.
Good deal. EJ, grab the chair. We should have an extra chair over there against the wall.
See you later.
I'll see you again.
Outstanding.
I'll be right back.
All right.
Good deal. But that's what we do. So one of the things is we'll like replicate missions. So we replicate no, I'm not going to crash. Let me fly a plane as well here. We'll say, hey, let's talk about how the Soyuz makes it to the ISS in real life, and we'll time it with a real life launch, right? And we'll say, hey, they're launching the Year in Space program. Or the Year in Space mission. Let's talk about what NASA's trying to do. Let's simulate our own Soyuz. Clearly, this is not a Soyuz, but let's simulate our own Soyuz mission in here and talk about the different flight profile, how you get to orbit, how you rendezvous and dock with the ISS, the fact that you can't use the main engines on the Soyuz within a certain distance of the space shuttle.
So the dynamics in space.
The dynamics in space.
Can you show me that?
Based on real orbital mechanics, I can absolutely show you this. I could launch that craft.
Soyuz, you made a Soyuz.
I could either just kill this Kerbal or here. This is not a sanctioned maneuver. Wait. Okay, that's ridiculous that it was able to do that. This one is actually designed by Brutus, who designed quite a few craft. We won't even have time.
It's
Well
really
done,
good.
Brutus.
There's an
Yeah.
excellent PDF that the museum puts out that has a bunch of the different airplane exhibits in it with some stats on it. Brutus took that PDF and designed almost every craft from the PDF
that's
in the
fantastic.
game. I'll never have
It's
time
getting
to
a
show
use
them
that
all.
I've never even thought of.
It's amazing. Let me just revert this flight without killing anybody. We'll go back to the spaceplane hangar. So we've got a spaceplane hangar where you design space planes. This is where you would design a shuttle or
Okay.
something like that, or an aircraft. And we've also got a vehicle assembly building where you would design rockets. And let's see if we can't come over here
KSB
and
uses
grab.
vertical integration, so they have a vertical assembly building. You
Yeah,
see it
right
in
there.
the
Yeah.
foreground.
Let's see if we can't just grab one of the Soyuzes. So I'm going to click on the launch pad, and it'll bring up all my different craft. Base interrupted, dress probe, Joule, simple space. There's a Delta 4, a Delta Chi instead of a Delta 5. Let's see here. There's the KISS. There's the Koyuz, KSA-1 Koyuz stock. And we've got a progress as well. Have we updated this one? Yes, that one's updated.
All right.
So let's put this guy on the pad. I only put one Kerbal in it. I think I could actually pull some people from chat.
You know, at my age, everything was Saturn V rockets. Have you ever done a Saturn?
We
V?
have done a Saturn V because
That's
it was
an
the
amazing machine.
anniversary of the
Right.
Apollo 11
Just-
mission.
Just came up. Yeah.
We did the launch. Actually, I never got around to the landing because I was preparing for the show here. We've got a CSM and the LM in transit to the moon in one of these saves.
So you can land on the moon with
we
a
can
lunar
totally
module.
land on the moon. Yeah, I'll
yes.
see if we've got time to show you that as well. And Sawyer's getting set up for the next thing. So here we've got our Soyuz that we designed in the game.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And this isn't the whole thing. It's only got one Kerbal in it right now. I may be able to grab, let's see here. Yeah, we'll grab a couple more people. Out of chat.
Scanning.
So this, right now, we've
Viewer,
got 500 people
drafter.
watching us. We've got Kinshiro G, we just pulled out a chat on Twitch, and we created a Kerbal with his name that we can put in the rocket. So that's kind of, people love to ride in our rockets. And then they die. Because sometimes, it is a game. We'll put Kinshiro in there, and let's see if I can't grab one more.
Scanning. Viewer. Drafter.
Naughty Pigeon. All right, that's an interesting name.
Where
We'll
are
put
you,
that in
Naughty
as well.
Pigeon?
Yeah, there you go, right? You know, there's probably a lot of those in New York, honestly. So we've got our little Kerbals in here. We've got our Soyuz rocket. I hope that this one works correctly. I just pulled one Soyuz rocket. I've got like 4 versions of it. Hopefully this one is the one that works. And we've got to do all the normal things. We've got to like pull the throttle up. we can actually lock down our resources. So we'll see how much electric charge, how much monopropellant we have, how much liquid fuel. The solid fuel is actually the SRBs that
Right.
push the boosters away. The LFO, liquid fuel and oxidizer. You can actually see all the different tanks and the way that they're balanced and stuff.
Wow.
Let's get rid of this here.
Now, I mean, you got to keep in mind that KSP it's designed to give you an entry-level understanding about how space flight works.
Ooh, that's
So
not what I want.
when you want to go out to the moon is on the same exact inclination as Kerbal, which is the Earth analog in the game.
Right.
So you can, it's a lot
All
easier because you don't have to launch on a flight azimuth. You can just launch on an azimuth of 90 and then do a trans-lunar injection burn right out to the moon. It's actually, it makes it so it gives people a fundamental understanding of how orbital mechanics work, and we'll be going there in a second.
Yeah, so we've got the rocket all set, right? I controlled, like, you have different probe cores you can control from different, like, points of reference and that sort of stuff. We do things, we bring our throttle all the way up. We've made our resource panel locked down so we can see what's going on. We actually have a stability augmentation system, so there's a flight computer that helps people fly the rocket straight.
The easy button.
Exactly.
Gyroscopic
This is kind of the easy
stabilization.
button. Yeah, exactly. And as it turns out, if on the entire keyboard you had to guess what button we press to go to space, what would your guess be?
L for launch?
3, 2, 1,
Oh.
space. To go to space.
That was my second.
Your second guess was space. L is actually a pretty good. I never actually thought that L for launch. But we've got the entire sort of like flight profile here. And again, we've got the same aerodynamic forces. We're not going very fast right now. So you see, there's a little bit of drag represented in red down here. And as we get going faster and faster, that drag will increase. I'm doing a terrible launch profile because I haven't leaned over yet. I need to start actually leaning over. But we're actually going to lean over to the east. The space center that we launch from here is on the equator. And we want to launch to the east so we get a little bit of the rotational momentum of the planet into our orbital velocity. We're going to just keep on. I'm going to have to lean over even more here. I'm not paying attention. And you can see all the different things.
We actually talk about that with the space shuttles.
Yes.
The inclination and Enterprise is modified for space may have been too heavy to take a worthwhile cargo on an inclination required for the access.
Really? I did not know that. It was because it was the glide test. It was kind of like the first one.
It's just that every single shuttle they made was in order
Right.
lighter than the one previous.
Okay.
So the lighter you make them, the more you can carry.
And this was the first. This isn't the first one.
Enterprise is the first
The first one.
season of
V101. There you go.
There were studies in the early 80s to see which would be the next one on the line, and it talks about taking Enterprise and trying to convert it into a
Right.
space radio. They ended up not doing it because, as you were saying, it was just there's too many design changes between Enterprise to Columbia. So they ended up using the structural test model that they used to test vibrations.
There you go. No, this
Test
guy's
Article 99, which became
this guy knows everything about the space shuttles. Like, he is the space shuttle guru. When it comes to the game, he actually does almost exclusively, I'm going to say, shuttle missions in the game, doing the exact same flight profiles. I can't even like say everything that he knows, but it's amazing to watch him play the game. We're continuing going to orbit here. EJ, you know what we messed up? We had infinite fuel turned on.
So we're
Why?
infinite fuel, huh?
Yes, no, there are things we were using it to test things earlier.
Now that you're flying, you can't take
Is
it off.
chat screaming? Yeah, everybody's like screaming at me that infinite fuel was on. Well, I could always shut down those and then decouple them. We're well past the point we should have gotten rid of them. I'm gonna have to cheat a little bit. Let's imagine that they ran out of fuel. Let's see if we can't get a Korolev going. A little bit. Nope, that one kind of rubbed on us a little bit. Not quite. If we had kept accelerating, it would have been different. Infinite fuel, no! Let's see here. Sound please, they're killing us. What are we missing? The game is too loud. So a bunch of people are saying the game is too loud. All right. Okay, EJ can fix that. Chat, thank you for that. Thank you for that. All right. Gotcha, okay. Thanks, chat. A little busy. Why didn't you tell us that earlier? We were launching rockets earlier.
You weren't watching anyway.
Jeez, seriously, guys. How's that sound? Yeah, 11-12 is the game. All right, how's that, chat? Now we're good. Are we good now? I think we're good. You tried texting EJ. EJ, you have a text message saying you. All right, good deal. So we're continuing on with our launch profile here. We've completely messed things up. I mean, things just aren't working correctly.
Things are kind of wobbly.
We have another special guest in the background as well.
Oh, look at this
Look
guy.
at this guy. If there's somebody who knows about riding on a Soyuz, Mr. Olsen, have a seat. Here's some headsets, everything.
And this is what they give you for doing this.
Yes, thank you. So,
Great to see you.
you caught us in the middle of a Soyuz launch in our game here. So we're actually playing a game called Kerbal Space Program, and we're launching a Soyuz rocket, which had an infinite amount of fuel on it, which isn't how we normally go to space. We fixed, and we're getting ready to get rid of stages of the rocket. But folks, with me now is Greg Olsen, one of the first private citizens to go into space, to pay a visit up to the International Space Station, and that was in 2006, I believe. Are we? Yeah, there we go. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, now you can hear me.
There we go. Yeah, just lean towards the mic a little bit whenever we talk. Thank you. So, that's what we're doing. We're actually playing a video game, and we've got people watching us live right now, and we're talking about, well, we were just kind of demonstrating the launch. This doesn't look like a very good trajectory, honestly, because the rocket's flying like this.
Yeah.
Did it feel like a video game to you at all?
A little bit, yeah. I don't play many video games, actually, but I watch my grandkids do it all the time.
There you go.
As you know, there was a successful Soyuz launch.
There was, just yesterday, day before yesterday,
Yes.
yeah. So, what we're doing, again, thank you for joining us. We've designed this game. It's kind of like Legos, right? And the game gives you a bunch of different pieces that you use to build rockets.
Okay.
And the trick is it's based on actual physics. So you don't just slap together a rocket and hit a button and it magically goes to space. You have to fly a trajectory that would get you into space. You actually have an entire like orbital map sort of here, and you've got to take off. You pitch over to the east. You start to gain a little bit of orbital velocity. You have to get up out of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And what we do is we teach people through the video game the basics of orbital mechanics, the basics of space flight, the basics of how you would rendezvous two craft together, that sort of stuff. So what we wanted to do is talk to you about your experiences in space and kind of what you thought about it. So you rode up in an actual Soyuz, which is sitting behind us, by the way.
Actually, that's the capsule at the Intrepid here is the one that I descended in and I landed in Kazakhstan.
Okay.
I took off on a different one, TMA-7, that my co-flyers, astronaut Bill McArthur and cosmonaut Valery Tokarev, they stayed on the space station for 6 months and came down in TMA-7 with a different flyer than me.
What was it like? I mean, to ride in the Soyuz, like...
Well, if you have a look at it, it's pretty cramped and crowded. But, you know, when you launch, it's just one direction. And you push back in your seat at, we had about 3.5 Gs, or 3.5 times the force of gravity, while we were accelerating. And it took us only 10 minutes to get from 0 to over 17,000 miles an hour. So you really feel pushed back in your seat.
Wow.
And there's nothing really in the normal activity, even take off a normal aircraft that are like it. Fortunately, during our training, we rehearsed this in a centrifuge. We're taking up to 8 and even occasionally 10 Gs, just so we can experience what it feels like.
Gotcha. So is it a rough ride? Is it a smooth ride?
Other than the G-forces, the launch is pretty easy. I mean, you just push back in your seat and you know, you even feel your face and ears being pulled back. And eventually that goes away and you feel like when you're at the top of a roller coaster, you know, that feeling of all of a sudden you're floating, and that's how we felt. During the launch with the high G-forces, I could hardly lift my arm.
Really?
And then all of a sudden I realized my arm's floating in front of me. And one of the things the Russian commander gets to do is he chooses his own little Cupid doll,
right?
Which he puts in the cabin. And one of the ways we know we're in orbit is when this Cupid doll starts floating around.
Starts to float around. It's kind of like on a little string or something?
No,
it's just hanging out?
Yeah. Yep.
What was the Cupid doll? Was it like a... Do you remember what it was?
It was some Russian doll, and I wouldn't know, but he had picked it. May have been his daughter's when she was young, something like that.
Gosh. Now, how much, I mean, I've heard the term like space tourist before, right? And we've actually got things in our game. We've got contracts, and we can take people to space in our game and get paid for it. And the trick is, in our game, the space tourists are wearing like Hawaiian shirts and shorts and flip-flops. And I don't think that it works that way in real life. It's not like you just sign up and they magically slap you in a rocket and go.
No, although once you're on the space station, you could well wear a Hawaiian shirt.
Wear a Hawaiian shirt?
In fact, astronaut John Phillips, who flew with me, did in fact have his Hawaiian shirt.
Nice.
There's really no need for flip-flops once you're on board,
Yeah.
because in a weightless environment, there's no need for shoes.
You don't have a lot of friction on your feet. You don't
Correct.
use them to push off things, I
Yeah.
guess. But there's quite a bit of training that goes into it. They don't just let anybody climb into a capsule.
I trained for 6 months in
Jeez.
Russia at the Yuri Gagarin Training Center, something like our Johnson Space Center. And it's located about 35 miles northeast of Moscow in just a little village, in the woods by a lake, very serene,
Nice.
almost combination of a university military campus.
Okay. What sort of things did you have to do? Like while you were training, you talked about the centrifuge, where you had to kind of experience the G-forces so you could
Right.
see what's going on. What other sorts of things did you have to do?
By far the hardest thing for me was to try and learn to speak Russian. Я говорю по-русски не очень хорошо. But I did learn a little bit because Soyuz is a Russian vehicle built by
Right.
Russian people. All the the meters and names
Controls?
the units are all in Russian. Commands are in Russian, so I did have to learn a certain amount.
Okay. And you can actually see it. If you look on the Soyuz that's right behind us here, you can kind of look inside. You can see like the units, the way that are labeled, the emergency things and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
The majority of it's in Russian.
Yeah.
So,
Now, typical day for me was I'd get up about 6:30. I'd run around this lake for 20 minutes, about 2 miles. Go and have breakfast at the Cosmonauts Cafe, and then classes 9 to 4. More physical training 4 to 6.
wow.
Dinner, homework, go to bed. I mean, it's much, as I say, it's like being a college student again, or
Okay.
military training.
Yeah.
And during the day, the classes were anything from how to operate the radio, how to operate the computer, a lot of hands-on with the safety and emergency procedures.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because that's the most important thing is they and I did not want me to be a burden to the crew.
Now you had to use some of those emergency procedures.
Yes, actually,
Wow.
when I came down, when we deorbited, we had an air leak. We lost about 30% of our air.
Really?
And one of my jobs was to open the emergency oxygen valve because I was the only one that could reach it. Now we had rehearsed this many times.
Right.
And, there's a Soyuz capsule just like mine here at the Gagarin Training Center, and we would sit in that for 3 or 4 hours. And amongst other things, would get your knees used to the
Get your
crampness
knees used to
of
it.
Yeah, and they would throw all kinds of things at us. An air leak. What do you do? The radio doesn't work. What you check. There's a whole sequence: power supply, transmitter, receiver. There's backup for all of them, and you just have to know this. Fire and toxic gas leaks. 3 things: fire, toxic gases, and actual air leaks, as we had, were the most important things in my training. For instance, suppose a meteor punctures. What do you do? And that depends on the rate of air leak. Well, how do you determine that? We have a pressure gauge, and so we would practice this. And we would literally take pressure readings, and you get the rate of leak. And that would depend on whether you just close the hatch or you just go immediately to your Soyuz vehicle.
Yeah.
And that's what it's sitting there for.
But it was just repetitive, train that so that if something hits the fan, you know where that oxygen valve is, or
Correct.
you know where that switch is. It's
Yep.
just like muscle memory because you've trained so many times. You don't need to think about it if something's going wrong.
Yes.
You just do it.
I could see when we were descending, cosmonaut Sergei Krikalev, who has until now more space flight time than anyone else, orbital space time. He was the commander. John Phillips was the flight engineer. And as we're coming down, I'm watching the pressure gauge get lower and lower. And I knew
Right.
what was coming, but I couldn't do anything until Krikalev said, "Olsen, Kislorod," which
Yeah.
means oxygen.
Okay.
And at that time, I had to open the oxygen valve. Now remember, we're decelerating, so
Right.
we have forces on us. I've got a space glove on, and it's not easy to hold. Everything Russian is heavy and tough and strong.
It's very strong sort
Yeah.
of deal.
So I had to hold it open for about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, and I felt like my arm was going to fall off.
So it
but-
wasn't just like an open it was like a
No, it
hold
was
it open?
spring-loaded, yeah.
Really?
Mhm.
So it wasn't like a valve you turn. It
Yeah.
was like keep getting...
Russians, yeah, a lot of smart stuff. So this way you wouldn't waste oxygen because if you know
Oh,
you
okay.
couldn't hit it by mistake.
I gotcha. But everything turned out in the end.
Yes.
Fine.
Yep.
You were good to go. You got
It was, and I mean after that was over, you know, we had the normal descent. The parachutes worked.
Gotcha. How was the recoup process? Was there a long...
It took me about 3 days to get back to normal.
Get back to normal?
You feel dizzy after you've been weightless for so long.
Yeah.
Now, the other guys, it took them 2 or 3 weeks, but they were weightless for 6 months.
For 6 months
I
at a
was
time.
only for 10 days.
Yeah, we had Dr. Tom Jones on the stream a while back, and he said there was a story where you get used to holding things in space,
Yeah.
and there's nothing pulling it down, so you get back down to gravity, and you're trying to hold a pitcher, and you don't grip it tight enough.
Yeah.
And as it turns out, you got to grip it a little bit more tightly so it doesn't slip out of your hand. So there's a story where someone dropped a pitcher after coming back down, just not being acclimated to how tightly you have to grip an object
Sure.
when you're in gravity.
Mm-hmm.
So can we talk about what you did when you were up on the station?
Sure.
You had some stuff going on up
Yeah,
there.
I originally had a very intensive science program planned. I had a company called Sensors Unlimited that made infrared cameras.
Okay.
That's cameras that image heat. You use heat to image. So you can see in the dark, you can see stars that are not visible to the eye.
Right.
And I had wanted to take that camera up and look at the Earth because you can see things like how healthy crops are.
Okay.
Water absorbs heat. Things that don't have water will reflect heat more. So if you're looking at a field of crops, if it's very dry, it will look white on an infrared camera. If it's very healthy and has lots of water, it'll look black. So, you know, using that, you can tell the health of crops. This thing is also used for de-icing on aircraft for the same reasons.
Really?
You know, ice reflects heat, so with our camera, if a wing is white, it means there's ice on it. If it looks black, it means the ice is gone, there's only water.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And so you were up in space doing some experiments. You were looking down
Well,
at the Earth.
I'll
Yeah.
finish the story. I was
Yeah.
also going to grow crystals in the NASA glove box. For long, complicated reasons, I wasn't able to do either.
Right.
Because of military restrictions,
Ah.
cameras used by the military. They wouldn't let me bring the camera up, and they had disassembled the glove box just before my flight. So I quickly switched to doing medical experiments for the European Space Agency.
Okay.
I took a lot of bacteria samples on the radio, the headsets, food areas, and I also did some experiments on motion sickness. They used me as a guinea pig.
As a guinea pig, nice.
Yeah.
Was it a motion sickness just like acclimating to being weightless, or did they spin you around in weird directions?
Yeah, it turned out I was a poor subject because I don't seem to be subject to motion sickness.
There you go. That's probably not a bad problem to have.
And I also have I'm not ashamed to admit this as a man, I have a poor sense of direction. The good part is I'll ask directions. And I've found, and a lot of space physicians agree with me, that there's a correlation between motion sickness and sense of direction. It's not 100%, but often at cocktail parties I tell this story.
Right.
And people say, oh, I have a great sense of direction, but put me on a boat and I'm sick and I can't read papers and moving cars and
Right.
things like that.
So basically, no sense of direction, you don't get sick.
My humble theory is that, my guidance system is just flopping around all the time. It never locks on, so, put me in acceleration or deceleration doesn't really matter.
It's no big deal.
Well, maybe we
Yeah.
could test this some more. I'll volunteer to fly with you.
There you go.
Sure, all right.
Be the control subject with you on that.
All right.
Was any part of the training flying kind of like the parabolic, where you go up in the plane and you fly the parabolic flight
Yes,
and kind of simulate the
I did
weightlessness?
I went up 6 times in an Ilyushin 76. It's a big Russian plane.
Okay.
To do zero gravity flights. You only got 3 of them because this was an old clunker. And we would go up and, oh, sorry guys, the oil pressure is dropping.
Nice.
And, one time there was a leak and,
Probably more dangerous than flying in space.
Probably,
Right.
yeah. But, during that time, we try and do things like put on gas masks
Right.
and things. Russians, they treated me very well. For instance, they took videos, and on one, a guy picked me up over his head, threw me, pushed me to the end of the capsule, and another guy was waiting there with an American flag. So
Okay.
I thought it was good PR.
You said you went up 6 times. How many times did lunch come up?
No, I did fine on that. And NASA, it's very interesting. You really can't predict who will and who won't get motion sickness.
Right.
So NASA just said, I think they use medicines. The Russians believe you can train into it. And none of the cosmonauts like to do these exercises. Like they strap you to a seesaw and they rock you back and forth. I mean, they let the blood go to your head, then your feet.
So they just make you motion sick a lot, or they try
No,
to
they try
force it
to.
onto you?
Yeah, and then they put you in a dentist chair or a barber chair, and you rotate. And while you're rotating, you do yaw, pitch, and roll with your head. Now, they do it first day for 10 seconds, 15, 20, and they just get it up. So
Bring you up to it.
yeah, when the
Yeah.
week prior to my flight, when we were in Kazakhstan, I was doing a minute and a half of this. I'm thinking this may be the only time I'm going to get up there. The last thing in the world I want to do is get sick.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
whatever they tell me, I'm going to do.
Do whatever they
Now,
say.
the cosmonauts didn't like to do that, and they'd sort of sneak out of those exercises.
Let's actually do whatever they say. Right there underneath the space shuttle book, I've been reading your book,
Wow.
By Any Means
Uh-huh.
Necessary. I've just kind of gotten started into it. I got it right before I started coming out here, and we kind of found out that you were going to be joining us.
Okay.
Is there anything in there you want to talk about?
Oh.
Any Means Necessary, like...
Yeah, there's a
The other
message to everybody, whether you're a student, whether you're a dropout or you're an 86-year-old person. Don't give up. That's the secret to my life. I've been very, very fortunate in life, and I'm telling you, I went to college and I even got a PhD. I was never the best at anything, whether
Right.
it's academics, sports, but I never gave up. And I give a lot of talks to kids in school.
Which is important.
Yeah, and I tell them when I played Little League Baseball, I was so bad that the coach used to tell me, Olsen, don't swing, maybe you'll get a walk.
Don't swing.
Lean into it.
Yeah.
Lean into it. Get a hit.
But I still showed up every game, every practice, and by the time I was 14, 15, I played Babe Ruth baseball and I made the All-Star team. But there was
There you go.
3 or 4 years between those two events, and I could have just sulked away. And believe me, I felt as lousy as anybody when you strike out.
Yeah.
But I just always kept coming back. And if anything, that's probably been the single, whatever secret there is to the success I've achieved. It's just not giving up. During my space training, I had a medical disqualification.
No?
I have a family history of collapsed lungs. It's called spontaneous pneumothorax.
Okay.
And this has happened in 1999. So the Russians were very wary of that. So I was in training in 2004 for 2.5 months, and they're always doing medical exams on you. And one time they took an x-ray of my lungs, found a little black spot, and they just freaked
just-
out. You're out.
Big red X on everything.
Because, any pilot will tell you this. When you're in training, the doctor is not your friend. He's
Yeah,
more like
no
your
kidding.
enemy. It's a gate to be, jumped over.
Heartbreaking, yeah.
Yeah.
Obstacle to be-
And that was devastating to me. It was like getting fired or flunking out of school.
kidding.
That really bummed me out. And the black spot turned out to be harmless, and so I got notes from my doctors and went to the Russians and said, okay, I'm ready to go back. And they said, "Niet." Means
Still,
no.
they said niet.
8 times I went back with more x-rays and so
Jeez.
forth. Niet. Finally, I brought my lung doctor over to me to Moscow. And we're sitting outside this room, all the physicians are meeting.
Yeah.
So my doctor's sitting with all his records, and they come out, they say, Mr. Olsen, we accept lungs.
We accept lungs.
Yeah. And I said, wait a minute, I brought this guy all the way from America, paid for his airfare, And I remembered my sales guy once told me, when you see the guy reaching for his wallet, just shut up
Just
and
shut
write
up
the
and let
order.
it go.
And I heeded that advice.
All right, we're good to go.
Yeah.
Excellent. So
I got to go back to work.
You have to go.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thank
But
you
you
so
got
much.
Greg.
Eric,
Yeah.
I think we'll be able to keep talking. Yeah,
I think
Yeah.
Greg has a few things to tell you about flying in space.
Thank you so much,
Uh-huh.
Eric, for joining us. Again, Eric,
seeing you, sir.
curator of aircraft.
Thanks for all you do.
The aircraft curator, yeah.
Aircraft curator here at the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum.
Come visit. Find me.
Seriously.
Let's talk airplanes.
Absolutely.
Or spaceships.
Or space, or anything. Really.
Or anything. Or Hubbles.
Hubbles.
Or anything.
That's the other thing. The Hubble 20. You were the
Co-curator on
for
that
the Hubble
with
25.
Mike Massimino.
Yeah, Mike comes here a lot.
Yeah.
Oh man, we're gonna have Mike here on Sunday on the stream as well.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
we're doing
Say
really
hello
good.
for me.
All right,
He's
we'll
a
do.
great guy.
Absolutely.
All right, I'm gonna hit the road.
Thank you. We
Thank you for having
appreciate
me.
it. All right, good deal. And if you see Sawyer over there, tell Sawyer to come on back. And yeah. All right. So, I was kind of starstruck, and I was so interested in your stories. I did a very poor job of flying the Soyuz here. I've currently got you on a very poor trajectory from intercepting basically anything. That's an escape trajectory.
Yeah.
From our version of the Earth, which is called Kerbal in the game.
Yeah.
We would be going into a solar orbit. That's not what we try to do normally.
Yeah, I don't know how much detail you went into about orbital mechanics.
Yeah.
But to me, it's one of the most beautiful things. If people say math, how can math be beautiful?
I think we can pull this over. You wouldn't
Oh,
have to
alright.
lean towards it if we pull that right like that, and you could just like sit up
Alright.
and be comfortable. I think we're good.
But
Yeah.
once you write down the equations of motion of a body, that approaches another body of a massive body,
Yeah.
a bunch of things can happen. You can whiz by.
Yeah.
You can be deflected. You could get captured into an orbit and be elliptical or circular.
Yep.
And this is all worked out in mathematics, and that's the beautiful part. Ellipses, hyperbolas, parabolas, circles, all drop out of the equations. And I remember when I had my class on orbital mechanics, I got goosebumps from saying, wow, all the stuff I learned in high school that I really didn't understand really has a meaning.
It makes sense, and it's really
Yeah.
nice. All that's actually, to an extent, that's simulated in our game as well. So it's actually based on real orbital mechanics. If you pass in our system here, we've got a moon right over this
Okay.
way.
Uh-huh.
If you pass within a certain distance of the moon, its gravity will start to affect you, and we can actually use
Sure.
it for a gravity slingshot.
Oh, wow.
So we did a replication of the Rosetta, the Philae mission, and we did a gravity slingshot
Thank you.
using the moon's gravity to gain a little bit of acceleration to go out and visit an asteroid.
Wow.
We can go to the moon and we can do a flyby. We can actually, like we did in the Apollo missions, set up a free return trajectory.
Uh-huh.
So I can try to do some sort of that sort of stuff. Sawyer, we want you to come plug back in, and if you want to,
My arm, huh?
and maybe I can do a better job of flying the rocket, and I'll get up into a trajectory here, and maybe we can go on a flyby of the moon or something like that.
Oh, yeah, moon or
we've also got an
Midness.
ISS maybe we could dock with. So we've got a lot of different things going on here. But I'd love to show you, for a video game, we're not just running around shooting people in the face, right?
Uh-huh.
A lot of video games get a bad rap because of that. This is a STEM video game. It helps people get excited. It helps people understand the basics of it. It's not the full in-body dynamics, right? It's not
Yeah.
a simulation, but it's enough so that people who aren't rocket scientists can get excited about what
Yeah.
happens in space and just gain a better understanding for what it takes to get this stuff done and kind of how we get it done.
I'm
so
a big fan of that stuff.
it's a lot of fun. We have kids that watch, we have families that watch the show, and we do different lessons. We have like a curriculum we go through, and we say, hey, today we're going to show how a Soyuz would rendezvous with the space station, and we talk through that. Today we're going to show how the Apollo missions landed on the moon, and we'll talk through that. How
Yeah.
we land a Curiosity rover on Mars. We can simulate those things.
Now,
because
people see this on their screens?
Absolutely.
Yep.
They see,
And they
they'll
also
see her,
see us.
actually.
It's right
yeah,
over there.
we've got it
They
over
see
here,
it.
so they see us down in the corner in the game. But we've got an entire solar system here. We've got different analogs of different planets. We've got like I can actually take in a tour right quick. Here's our sun, right, called Kerbal. We've got a little Mercury analog, a small rocky planet close to the sun. You can visit there, you can land a probe on it and explore it. You can actually go and do different science experiments and gain science from visiting different
And
craters
will
and
this tell you
areas.
like where the equator is on that?
Yes,
and
absolutely. So
so
we've got an
forth?
entire, all the math is
Mass
being
and
done by
stuff.
the game. It
Uh-huh.
tells you your periapsis, it tells you your semi-major axis, everything that you need. The delta V available to the craft using the rocket equation. All of that is simulated in the game. We've got a Venus analog, so a big, heavy, thick atmosphere that crushes you if you get down to. It's really hard to take back off from this again. It's got a teeny tiny little capture asteroid moon. Here's our planet, Kerbal, where we launch all our missions from. We've got a moon. No, we'll go through everything. We've got a captured ice planet sort of deal. Here's our Mars analog. So one of the things we can do, we can build a Curiosity, we can send it to our Mars analog and land it, and then drive it around and do science experiments.
Do you still have Pluto on here?
We have a Pluto analog, and we actually did the New Horizons mission. We built in the game a New Horizons probe, and we went all the way out to, we're going through the moons of Jupiter now. Nope, that's Pol and Bop. There we go. So we have Elu. And the funny thing is, this is what we kind of thought Pluto was going to look like, and so we've made it kind of icy with these big cracks. And now that we've got the imagery back from Pluto, it's like it is a lot different place than we thought, and it's kind of the same that we thought. Like some of the cracks may have mountain ranges on it that we've observed. So we have a bunch of different places. In even this one is in an orbit that sometimes takes it inside the orbit of a gas giant. So we've got different inclinations that we have to match. We've got different orbital periods. We've got different eccentricities. And it's different challenges to get to different places. But Sawyer, let me load up another rocket.
Okay.
I think we could probably go and rendezvous at the space station.
Let's
I could
do
talk
that.
about doing an orbital rendezvous. When I'm doing a maneuver, I'll kick in kind of what I'm doing, and you guys just roll ahead. We've already kind of talked about getting into space and that sort of stuff. We've talked about Greg's book. Just you guys have fun, and I'll have fun too.
All right.
Well, one thing that I do, I'm a ham radio operator. And you did ham radio on the station, right?
Yes, we did.
What's the story behind that? What made you decide to do that, and how does that work?
Well, I was also a ham radio operator when I was in high school. I sort of left it back then, and we use Morse code, and I've pretty much forgotten it. But I did have to renew my license, and I did, and that was part of my training at Star City. So I was trained in Russian, and I had an interpreter who got me through, and you know, the test is pretty straightforward. So I renewed my license, and I did a number of ham radio sessions when I was on the station. As you might imagine, lots of people want to get in touch with it.
Oh, yeah.
I have to throw this in. Everybody in chat says that you're absolutely awesome. So thank you for joining us. There's a live
thank
chat
you.
going through for people watching the show right now, and people say that you're absolutely amazing. So I wanted to pass that on now that I checked
All
chat.
right.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Do you still want me to hang around?
No,
or-
you're cool.
Yeah.
You
yeah,
can
that
hang
was
a little bit
great.
longer. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's okay.
all right.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
Go
that's-
ahead.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of people do want to talk to
Yeah.
ham radio, to ham radio operators
Oh,
on the
sure.
station.
Yep. And you know, it was just like reliving my past, a good part of my past, because you know that's how I learned electronics. I mean, a lot of it was self-taught. You know, soldering and figuring out diagrams and you know which side of a diode is which. You know, you got to just do this, get your hands dirty. I've got two grandsons, Justin and Carter. They live in Colts Neck. And I like to do that stuff for them, get them kits where they can put things together and solder it. When they were younger, we had Legos Mindstorms, which I think is great.
Mindstorms
Oh,
are
they're
awesome.
the best,
I
yeah.
love Lego Mindstorms.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it's being able to just get hands-on with things and interactive and building, kind of like, you know, the game, even if it's not a physical object, just to get people thinking of how things work.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of the game. Like problem solving is a huge part of the game. Just kind of like thinking through, like trying something that didn't work. Why didn't it work? Let's observe what happened. It's a video game, right? What are you going to have to observe and fix? Well, if my rocket bends over, maybe it needs more supports or more struts or something in a specific place.
I'll tell you an interesting story about the Mindstorms. I have a wine farm in South Africa near Cape Town. And in fact, I took up some wine labels with me, which I still have. But we have a school next to the farm, and mostly they're farm workers' children, so they don't have a lot of money or resources. And these schools look pretty primitive, even though they do a good job of teaching the kids. So I went to the principal and I said, look, if I can get you a couple of Mindstorm kits, do you think you could go to University of Cape Town and get some volunteers to teach them? And they said, we'll do it. So kits just arrived this week, and I'm hoping we'll introduce some science and technology, more than they would have had.
Nice. Yeah, because that's the thing, is how you're obviously, you know, with the entrepreneurial mindset, what can we do? What is there to create that can get kids interested in STEM, and what is there out there for them in STEM?
Wow.
Kerbal Space Program, please.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You got to do imagination. You know, my grandkids are getting to be 8th grade high school, and it's not so cool anymore to have grandpa come in. But I used to come in and do science stuff, and it had to be mind-blowing. It had to be like, wow. Of course, the all-time favorite is the Van de Graaff generator, where the kids put their hand on and their hair flies up. But, you know, I do stuff with magnets, and, you know, you got to do the wow. They have to say, wow, that thing's suspended in air. How'd you do that? And then you can start putting in the principles. If you do it the other way around and try and describe magnetic fields, it doesn't work too well.
You got to have the wow factor first. One of the part-time jobs I've done is I did like after-school science programs for kids, and it wasn't to sit there and make them memorize equations. It was to sit there and show them things that made them say, "Wow, that's awesome," just so they could say, "Wow, science is something that's really cool. Science is something that makes me say that's amazing," and get them kind of like the foot in the door to want to learn more about it. But it's always the wow factor first.
Absolutely. Another favorite trick of mine was the lemon battery.
Yeah.
You have a penny and a zinc nail. And my grandson Justin reminded me this year that, you know something, if you use magnesium instead of zinc, you can light up an LED with 2 lemons instead of 3.
Oh, wow.
You know,
It's
it's a higher
creative
offset
mindset.
potential. Yeah.
A creative mindset there, yeah.
So I'm preparing my launch here. I've got ours is called the KISS, both for the Kerbal International Space Station and for the Keep It Simple station.
Okay.
Because the more complicated we make our station, the slower our game runs. If we use too many parts, the physics processing gets a little hard on the computer to do because it's designed to run on people's home computers, right? So the Keep It Simple station is up. And I was just kind of observing where it is. I'm going to try to go into an orbit that I can subsequently rendezvous with it. And I see right now it's in an 87-kilometer orbit. It's roughly circular, and it's also kind of equatorial. It doesn't have a very, very big inclination there. Maybe a couple degrees of inclination, but not that big of a deal. So I'm ready to do the launch, and you guys keep on going, and I'm going to fly a rocket.
All right. Well, how about we all watch the launch first, and then we'll talk about
I'll
the
talk
launches
through
and
it. I'll
stuff.
totally talk through it this time. We've got our Soyuz on the pad. Everything's good to do. It doesn't look a lot like Baikonur because it doesn't have the huge hole on one side, right? But it looks a lot like a Soyuz. And
also, there's green. There's also green grass.
There's green grass as well, right? So one of the cool things is we designed this craft in the game, and then we sent it to a company that 3D printed it for us.
Wow.
So 3D printing, kind of the one in up-and-coming things. This is called a company
They
called
sell
Euclid.
those in Baikonur.
They sell them in
Models like
Baikonur?
that.
Really? That's awesome. So we got this designed to match the rocket in the game. We sent them the model from the game, and they printed this out for us. So let me go ahead. Our throttle's all the way up. Let me make sure infinite fuel is off this time. That's important. Yes, no infinite fuel. Okay. There's some debugging things that we can use. So we're on the launch pad. Everything looks nominal. We've got our 3 astronauts in here: Nora Dunny, Cronus, and Bark. We've looked at all our resources. The rocket's fueled. It's ready to go. The flight computer's on, and then we press 3, 2, 1. Space in order to go to space. Now the game volume may be very low so that you guys can keep us hearing. We've decided to kind of like err on the side of hearing the interesting people as opposed to hearing the rocket engines going. But we do the same sort of launch profile. We get going up and we try to get around 50 meters per second and start to pitch over to the east, so we take some of the planet's rotation and add that indoor orbital velocity as opposed to taking off to the west or north or something like that. You go to the west, you have to fight against the planet's rotation. You go to the north, it's kind of like a 0-something. You got to cancel it out if you want to go straight polar. But we just keep going over like this. We just pitch over, and we have different thicknesses of atmosphere. So the deeper we are down in the atmosphere, the closer we are to sea level, the thicker the atmosphere is. And as we ascend up out of the atmosphere, it gets thinner. The pressure gets lower. Our engines get more efficient. The game actually models the specific impulse of the engines, and the thinner the atmosphere gets, the more specific impulse they get. We also get less drag on the craft, so I should be able to see some drag overlays there.
There's the red
You
lines.
can see all the different parts of the craft generating drag. And one of the cool things about the Soyuz rocket, the way that the boosters kind of stick out to the side like that, they act as almost like fins, right? And they kind of move the center of pressure back to make the rocket stable. The game actually simulates that. So you can have a rocket, if you have a bunch of draggy parts on the top that create a very non-aerodynamic shape up high, if the center of pressure is too high, the rocket can actually start to flip over. And a lot of people are like, oh, my rocket keeps flipping over, I don't know what's going on, it's too heavy on the top. It's not that it's heavy. You turn on the overlays here where you can actually see the drag and you can see kind of the different forces acting upon the rocket, and you say, hey, all these non-aerodynamic parts that you've slapped on the top of the rocket make it want to flip over like a lawn dart sort of deal. But the game actually simulates that. You can actually see we're starting to get some Mach effects there. You see, as we break the sound barrier, the game will actually tell us right now we're going Mach 1.7. And the Mach number would decrease as we get into thinner atmosphere, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm just going to keep on flying here, and I don't know if this is the one we tested. We'll have to see if this is the certified for going to space version of the Soyuz. But we just keep on going. Another thing that we have to do when we design the rockets in the game is think through the different staging. So the game will compute, using the rocket equation, the different amounts of delta V we have in each stage. Look, we're actually getting a little bit of shock heating now on the outbound flight.
Yeah.
Maybe going a little bit fast. But this stage is just about out of fuel, so we're going to ditch the boosters and just leave the central core going. And hopefully we'll get a little bit of a correlate here. It depends on how prograde I'm going here relative to my motion. We'll wait, those engines are going to die. There, they just flamed out. And let's go. There we go. We get a little bit of a correlate cross. And you can even see the aerodynamic forces are acting on those parts as they separate away. But you actually have to design the rocket to do this. We just started with independent fuel tanks, independent engines, and we had to engineer this rocket to do that. And we were inspired by the Soyuz and want to do the same sort of thing. And you can see we've got a little bit of a wobble going
just a little there, huh?
I'm sure that the actual rocket doesn't wobble nearly this much. Can you feel anything like that?
No, I didn't, no. Now
But-
coming down, of course.
Yeah,
it
coming
does.
down, that's a whole different story,
Yeah.
right? But we're just going to keep on going on here. What are we at? We've got an apoapsis of 57, 58 now. This is the most wobbly stage of flight, simply because we didn't spam a bunch of parts in to try and make this rocket rigid. And pretty soon, the central core is going to decouple, and we'll go on with the upper stage. Whoa, 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 whoa. Calm down, rocket. All right, you cool? All right, it's
There it
behaving
goes.
now. I was probably duty cycling it because I'm actually flying it right now, right? There are some awesome mods for the game where you can actually write programs that will fly your rockets for you.
Yeah.
So there's a scripting language that controls the rockets. And hopefully this rocket will not, yeah, there we go. Now that stage is out. We'll pop the next stage and we'll keep on going to orbit here. And so I didn't do a very good launch. I was running my mouth most of the time. I talk a lot sometimes.
That's good.
But I already have an APO of 78, and I know that if I get into an orbit that has the exact same apoapsis and periapsis of the station's orbit, it'll be very hard for me to rendezvous with it, simply because I won't be able to sync them up. The phasing won't be easy to control. So I'm going to try to go into an 80K orbit here, which means that I won't continue burning. Normally on the Soyuz, this stage would continue burning. But are we almost out of the atmosphere? Our atmosphere in the game ends at 70 kilometers.
Okay.
So it's not like real life where the atmosphere of the Earth gets thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner, and the International Space Station is actually in the upper reaches of the atmosphere. Here the atmosphere ends, and it goes from, there's a little bit of atmosphere to like pure vacuum at a certain altitude. Again, that's so you can run on your home computer, right?
Yeah.
But we'll go ahead and get rid of this fairing. We don't need anymore. There went the launch escape system as well, so that's another thing you can program.
When that happened, when I flew, because the shroud doesn't allow you to see anything.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I heard this explosion, boom, and I see this big blue sphere slowly receding. You know,
Really?
It's just cool.
Wow.
So there's like a small viewport or something that you can't see out of.
Yeah, I had, if you look on the right side of the Soyuz, there's a window that on both left and right sides you can see out.
So cool. So we've blown the launch escape system, we've blown the protective air shell there, and now what I'm going to do, I'm actually just going to coast. I'm actually really close to the APO. The game will let me plot maneuvers so I can say, hey, when you get to the APO, pour some more kinetic energy into your orbit until you get roughly circular. And I've got this little node planning tool that'll help me do that. Now, I'm probably not going to have the thrust away to execute that. 984 delta V, it's going to be a 2-minute burn, and it's time to do that right now. I, again, was running my mouth, so I didn't start executing the maneuver fast enough, right? And in real life, this is computer control, and it's all done in advance. There's not some live guy streaming on Twitch, like completely having fun talking to people while he flies
On the other
rocket.
hand, you could crank the program back if you wanted.
You could.
Yeah. Also, the
We will
with
get
the-
into orbit, though.
But the actual Soyuz, the third stage is hot fired, right? Where it's fired while the second stage is still going.
You're right. These engines actually turn on before it separates.
So, do you feel any jolt when that, with the stages, or?
Yes, you do. Hard to describe. It's just a difference in force on you.
Right.
So I'm doing something that you wouldn't normally do in real life, especially not during a normal launch. I'm looking at my vertical speed, and I'm trying to kill my vertical speed so that I can control my apoapsis of my orbit, right? And whenever I get that vertical speed down to 0, I'm going to start going prograde along my orbital path instead of, that would be radial there, I guess. And if I can keep that vertical speed down by doing a very unrealistic maneuver here, I know that I'll be able to get myself into a circular orbit. So as I pour on more and more orbital speed, I need to get that up to about 2,300 meters per second with this planet in order to get going. It's a lot faster in real life. But I can see my periapsis is increasing. Right now, it actually intersects with the planet, which is something we don't try to do when we want to be in orbit. We want to be falling and missing the planet, and that just means I need to go faster and faster until I'm falling at the right rate to miss the planet. So there we go. And I'm just flying the craft by the seat of my pants, basically here, trying to maintain that vertical speed right around 0 meters per second, meaning that I'm traveling very near my apoapsis. And that periapsis is down to 90. And you see, as we pour on more and more kinetic energy into that orbital velocity there, we miss the planet more and more. We get better and better at missing the planet until eventually we completely miss the planet. We grab ourselves a little periaps there, and we get the flip. That's an 82 by 77 orbit. Not the greatest orbit in the world, but I know from an orbital standpoint, if I do a little bit of anti-radial here down towards the planet, which makes my engine look like this for everybody in chat, I'm actually going to burn inwards towards the center of the orbit. That will help trade some of that periapsis for apoapsis. So if I burn right like that, that number will go down slowly. And it was hard for me to catch there. That's actually really hard to see. But now the apoapsis is 81, the periapsis is 77. And now that I'm very close to my periapsis, I can burn retrograde, take a little bit of the extra kinetic energy I put in, and try to circularize the orbit. So again, these are not maneuvers that happen in real life, but if you were to do these orbital maneuvers, this is what would happen. Yeah. It's really cool that there's a video game that exists that like simulates this sort of stuff.
Yeah. So for yours, now they do the rapid approach to the space station, which is 6 hours.
Yeah,
yours was,
great question.
how long's yours?
2 days. A little
2
over 2 days.
Yeah. In a lazy boy recliner, but it's probably not as comfortable.
No, once you're in orbit, a lot of the crampedness disappears.
Right.
And the other thing is what you can't see here is we have a habitat module on top of my descent module. It's basically a sphere about the same size. So we can go up there and float around. There's a little kitchenette. We eat. There's a crude toilet, drinking water. And 2 of us would sleep there. The commander always stayed, by the console.
By the console. So I've done more unrealistic things here, right? Because it is a video game. I've been a bad space citizen. I've left orbital junk up here. The upper stage here is in orbit, and it will remain in orbit a lot longer than it should. I should have dumped this stage and then completed the orbit using the Soyuz's thrusters as opposed to using that upper stage there. So that's something, again, when we design our missions in the game, that's something you can do. You can say, hey, I want to minimize the orbital trash I leave around and design my rocket so that this stage completes, runs out of fuel, such that it is still going to re-enter the atmosphere and burn up. Yeah. So burning up in the atmosphere is another thing that can be replicated. It actually simulates the heat of...
It's a good learning experience.
It is, and it's just all the different things you think about. It's like we think about these things in real life when we design these missions. And there's a video game that I have a 9-year-old daughter, she plays and she understands, Dad, you didn't put a heat shield on. You're going to burn up when you re-enter, and she's 9 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's just cool. It's like getting people who may think that this is rocket science, it's too complicated. There are things that you can think about. It's like a problem-solving thing, and everybody needs problem-solving skills. So I'm in a nice circular orbit now. I'm 78 by 76. This is kind of like the real Soyuz does. If you've seen the Smarter Everyday video, Smarter Everyday says it goes up into a rough orbit first, and then the current trajectory, it'll go into a cleaner orbit. They kind of clean it up, and then it'll burn for rendezvous with the space station once it's got a nice, well-known orbital trajectory, right? I'm kind of halfway between the two, plus it's a video game, so let's just see if we can go to the ISS. We've got to plot our rendezvous with the ISS now, and it is right here behind us. This is bad for us, right? Because we're in a lower orbit, we're down at 77, the ISS is up at 85, right? I'm a little bit in front of it. And this means, since I'm on a lower orbit, I've got a higher orbital velocity, 2884 meters per second, versus the station going at 2272. and I'm in front of it, this means that I'm going to have to lap it. I'm going to have to go so many orbits that I come all the way around and come up to it from behind.
Yeah.
Now, if I wanted to, I could burn into a higher orbit and let it catch up with me. But again, the game simulates that. I have to understand these things in order to rendezvous with it. I think I may just go for a time warp here, because we can plot the maneuver and see how many days we'd have to wait in order for us to go all the way around the planet and catch up with it. And of course, it's not like the station's going to stay there and we're going to go around the planet. No, we're chasing each other around, and we just happen to be on the inside track right now. And because we're on the inside track, we will eventually lap it, basically, just like, you know, running a track race or something. But let me see if I can't get that going. I'll come down here and we'll just put down a maneuver node, and we'll put a little bit of prograde into it. And I want that apo to be, whoa, that's way too high. Let's bring that back quite a bit. Let's click on that so we can see it. 134, that's bad. Come on. There you go. All right, there we go. So our apo is 131 from the node now. And we want to get that down to like 87. 30, 90, 87, there you go. 85, 86, 87. So I've set my apoaps, because I'm going to try for a Hohmann transfer, right? I've set my apoaps close to what the station's orbital height is. And then I can come in here and say, hey, target the space station for us. I like that. And see if we're ever going to match up with it. And the game does some computations. It's like, hey, DOS, if you execute this maneuver next time you come around, you are going to be right here, and the station's going to be right here. That's not a rendezvous. Well, I can say, all right, game, compute for me what happens if I wait in orbit. And you can see it moved a little bit. The station will be a little bit further behind because we're going to lap it and lap it and lap it. So wait another orbit. Wait another orbit. And I could actually sit here and just click how many orbits do I need to wait in order to actually rendezvous with the station. And this is going to be multiple days. Every time I click that, I know my orbital period right now is about 30 minutes. It's just roughly.
I'll never dock. We'll have to come
exactly. We'll just run out of supplies and have to come back down again. Eventually, we would get rendezvoused with it here. And you see, here we are. We're just illustrating the lapping. After 2 days and 5 hours, the Kerbal day only has 6 hours. I don't know why. It spins very quickly, I guess. I should be able to get very close to a rendezvous there. There you can see we'll come within 13.6 kilometers if we wait for 3 days and 3 hours, 3.5 days. But that's the way that real orbital mechanics would work. So I'm going to keep on working with this and see if I can't clean this up a little bit. I think chat wants more stories. Chat loves your stories.
Yeah?
You have the best stories.
They're loving it right
it's
now.
Like off like the hook, I guess, off the chain over here with chat stories.
Yeah.
All right, so.
I'll give you a good dinner story.
A dinner story, there we go.
Yes.
Because remember, when I docked at the space station, the two guys up there, you know, one astronaut, one cosmonaut, they were happy because that means they get to go home.
Right.
So, and it's been a long time. So I remember the first dinner we had, everyone's talking about, if they were on Earth, what would they like to have? You know, as to eat, drink, whatever. And, you know, so we went around and Krikalev said he just wanted to smell a fresh cup of coffee. Now, we had coffee up there, but it's instant in a plastic bag and you add hot water. So he said, if I could just have the aroma of a fresh cup of coffee, I would love it. And John Phillips, who had also been away for 6 months, said, no, man, I want pizza and beer. That's what I want. And went around the table, and when it came to me, I mean, I'm looking forward to eating space food at this stage,
right?
Which is terribly appetizing. So I chose steak and red wine.
Nice.
So, you know, that was our dinner type talk. And, you know, it's like anything else. It was dinner time when you get to know people because you kind of lay your burdens down. There's a lot of maintenance work that goes on during the day, but, you know, meal times, you just kind of sat around and talked and get to know each other.
That's one of the cool things, I think. Like astronauts, people that go to space, people that do these things, it's very like romanticized almost. It's like, wow, these people are like so far up there, and it's like, hey, we docked with the space station, and then we talked about what do we wanted to eat. You know, it's like they're real people too. They want a good steak and wine. They want to smell coffee. Like they're real people who train hard to be able to do this, but you know.
The 8 days I was on the station, things are pretty hectic because remember, Phillips and Krikalev, they're planning the descent. So there's a lot of operational stuff to do. A new crew just comes on. So, and then there was a progress dock there for supplies. So just a lot of activity, a lot of things going on. Now, once we left and MacArthur and Tokarev are on there, there's still a lot of things to do, but there's a lot of downtime. On weekends, they get days off and things like that. And you get a lot of time to think.
So, while you're at these dinner conversations, obviously it's a very international crew. It's maybe a bizarre question, but what is the language of choice, or does it depend on which module you're in?
Very good question.
What module you're in?
Yes, exactly. It is. Certainly on the Soyuz, it's all Russian. Now, the official language of the space station is English because it's international. That's by agreement. So most Russian cosmonauts speak, reasonable English, and our conversations tend to be in English. But certainly anything with the ground on Moscow is all done in Russian. Whatever Russians are on board are certainly speaking Russian. So, and the other thing is, it really is a bilingual station. Everything, whether it's a power supply, power, Patenya, there's both the English and the Russian word for everything.
So there were actually some questions that came from chat over here. I can answer one because you answered it earlier. Did you go down in the same Soyuz you went up in, or in a different one? It was two different ones, right?
Correct. I launched on TMA-7. And that stayed docked on the station for 6 months. I came down on TMA-6, which had been already there for 6 months. Krikalev and Phillips had taken off 6 months earlier in that. And that's the one that's here at the Intrepid. It's TMA-6.
The one you rode down in, right?
Yes.
Gotcha.
We landed in Kazakhstan, a couple of hundred miles north of Baikonur.
Gotcha.
Now, I'm going to play off of a viewer question I saw. They were asking how you sleep in space.
How you sleep in space.
And
That
one
was
thing
a
I was
great one.
wondering is, since you're just there as a visitor, you weren't there, for a full 6 month stay. Did you get your own bedroom on the station, or did you stay in the Soyuz, or what did they make you sleep?
Stay in the Soyuz.
Officially, I was a Russian subject, so I was only supposed to be on the Russian segment. But, when you're up there, I mean, it's your colleagues.
Yeah.
And one of MacArthur said, Greg, there's a good spot over there. Why don't you just tie your sleeping bag up there? So, with respect to the Earth, we sleep vertical.
Right.
And you tie a sleeping bag against the wall so you don't float around, and that's how you sleep. You also sleep with your arms out.
Really?
Yeah. Because that's kind of the natural position that your arms take
I guess
without
so,
weight.
Yeah.
It takes actual effort to keep them at your side.
It's almost like floating in a pool, I guess. Like if you float in a pool, they're kind of like.
Yeah.
Cool.
I have a video on my iPhone. I don't know if you can see it here, but anyway.
I don't know if we'd have a way to play that.
Unless we just bring it right up to the camera. That's the only way.
We could totally play it. Like if we got a copy of it, we could play it. But I don't think we can play it off the iPhone.
Yeah, we should have had foresight for that.
Hey, we'll definitely play it on another stream. That's
Oh
for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, we'd love
We're
to
here
do
all
that.
weekend, so yeah.
All right, so we're almost going around here. What else do we get with chat over here? Let's see here. Let's see. I don't believe the cupola was in place then. The cupola was not installed
No,
yet.
it wasn't, unfortunately.
Okay, so no time in the cupola.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I'm wondering is now they have the digital Soyuz. So like the last one that docked was 17M. Yours was just 6 and 7.
Yeah.
Do you know a little bit what the difference is with the digital ones versus the one you flew in, or is it?
I don't know much other than obviously many things, including the guidance system, has really been cranked up.
But no different. The crew doesn't have any more amenities or anything like that. It's still pretty much the same Soyuz
Not to my
capsule,
knowledge,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
It's a pretty basic device. Very reliable one, though, as you know.
It's been operating for quite a while, yeah.
Uh-huh.
With some software and I guess computer upgrades, but on the whole, yeah.
But that's with anything.
Could you tell the difference between TMA-6 and TMA-7? Like, just if you were inside, did you know one from the other?
Yeah, it seemed pretty much the same to me. I didn't get a lot of time to check out TMA-6 when I was flying because it's pretty much get in there and go.
Get home,
Yeah. We spent a lot of time adjusting the mass because, the amount of lift and drag depends on where the center of mass is. And the center of mass doesn't necessarily coincide, with the geometric center. And that amount of offset helps determine where you're going to land.
Yeah.
So we had to be very careful with our adjustment of where we put the supplies that we're bringing back down on Earth.
So it's like you had to tune the spacecraft to get you home successfully.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. Which is why going up I was allowed 10 kilograms of supplies, but only 5 coming down.
Oh wow.
You couldn't take any souvenirs from the space station unless you brought
Yeah.
it yourself, huh?
Yeah. Now,
Jeez.
one thing I've heard is that I've heard the landing, you've got all the mass and balancing
Yeah.
that. I've heard it compared to getting into a car crash at about 30 or 40 miles an hour.
Getting
Is that
into
about
a car
accurate?
crash.
It depends. My landing I thought was fairly benign.
Okay.
I mean, it's a pretty big bump when you come down.
Got the retro
But-
rockets, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Those actually do
yeah,
anything.
and I didn't think it was too bad. Now, I mentioned this to Bill MacArthur right after he landed, because I went to his landing, and he said, that landing was rough. And the difference is, he had wind, I didn't. Because, the retro rockets aren't going to help you when you have a 20-mile-an-hour wind.
There you go.
Interesting. Forget about the crosswinds and things like that.
So we've got a couple things going on here. I'm about to approach the ISS. You can see we're actually on our transfer trajectory here, and we'll be coming within 4.4 kilometers of it, which is not a problem. I'm actually going to do a couple burns to get going. You can actually see it in the sky there. And if we were to go in, we could actually zoom in and kind of see the arrays of the station from this distance of 28 kilometers. But I'm going to see if I can't speed this up a little bit, because Sawyer, we are getting ready to run out of time.
Yes, unfortunately we're cutting close on
We
the
are
time
cutting
here,
close
but
on the time,
we
but
will
I am
definitely
going
do
to
a
get us to the
docking.
space
Oh yeah, we're going to dock.
center, and they can drag me off of the live stream here.
That'll make for
Honestly.
good entertainment, that's for sure. It'll be a good show.
Exactly. Live on Twitch, dragging us away from our newfound friends and the space shuttle behind us. Now we're going towards it. That should have increased my, that's 4.8 kilometers. Let's get a little bit closer. I've actually got time warp in the game. It takes time to do things in spaceflight. We didn't just want to sit here for 3 days. I'd love to sit here for 3 days. We might have to order some food.
Yeah.
But let me fly over to the center. or to
Yeah,
the
speaking of which,
center.
of the space food you had, do you have a favorite
There
meal?
you go.
Yes, the NASA shrimp cocktails
The NASA
were
shrimp
definitely my
cocktails.
favorite. Yeah. Now, they're basically dehydrated shrimp,
Okay.
and you inject hot water with like a hypodermic needle into a plastic bag
Right.
and smush it around for about 5 minutes, and you watch these things expand. But the sauce is tangy.
Okay.
Because, the diet is basically very bland.
kinda
'cause
bland.
They don't want you to get sick. They don't want you to have upset stomach. So it's pretty,
Yeah.
oatmeal, stew, stuff like that. But everybody liked the shrimp cocktails. And I was very, very cognizant that, listen, MacArthur and Tokarev, they're going to be here 6 months. So I kind of deferred to them not to eat too many shrimp cocktails.
Not to eat too many.
Well, I guess we know what's packed for Jeb next time, right?
Shrimp cocktails, yeah.
Jeb,
One
one
of
of
the
the
big
Kerbals.
running jokes in the game is that the Kerbals always have to take snacks with them.
Yeah.
So I'll show you in a second. There's actually an IVA, like an inter-vehicle view, where you can see the gauges and stuff, and there's always a little compartment labeled snacks. So the Kerbals have something to eat. But you can actually see the arrays on the ISS there as we approach it. And again, I'm doing kind of a field expedient launch here to get us there quickly. I'm not doing an actual launch where we're not allowed to use the main engines within a certain distance of the station, so we don't damage anything, yada, yada, yada. Nah, we're just getting there super fast because we need to see if we can go for a dock. There we go, we're
Maybe a
flying
little
by it.
ambient light adjustment?
Does it look okay? I think once we get up to it, are we
yeah.
on the night side? Oh, we are on the
Yeah.
night side. Let's bump up the ambient light a little bit.
Yeah.
But this was another thing we did. We went through and we looked at schematics of the actual, now I've lost it. How do you lose a space station? Okay. Well, I'll find it in a second. How could it can't be that hard to find.
Well, you're burning retro too, so that might help.
That's the motion. Where did the space station go? All of a sudden, it's
Oh, there it is behind you.
Wait, where?
Swing back, straight down. There you go.
There it is.
That
Okay,
giant
all right.
station.
Yeah, that huge station there, a quarter kilometer away from us. I don't even think we're approaching the right side. Yeah. So one of the things we did on stream, we looked at schematics of the space station. We showed them on the show, and then we built a replica of the space station with all the different modules. So we had like the Japanese laboratory Kibo, we had the Russian segments, the Zarya and the Zvezda with the Rosovets, and I forget the name of the other one. I'm pronouncing them correctly now, I think. I'm
Yes.
close enough, at least for a guy from Texas. We have the solar arrays, the P and the zero truss, or the P and the S trusses. We've actually got the cupola and stuff on there, but that was a very interesting stream. We sat there and we talked about the different order it was assembled in, and kind of the different design considerations and how it grew over time. And I am wondering, we're getting close here. We're getting close, yeah. But now we're just kind of flying up. It looks like we're coming up from the wrong side because we would be docking a Soyuz with the Russian segment on the other side of the station. And this here looks like that's going to be Kibo and Gems and the Columbus European Laboratory on this side. So we would have to fly underneath it, you know, field expedient. Let's just speed up to it right quick. Oh, that docking port's apparently full of another Soyuz. So we'll have to see if we can't use our RCS to slow down. Not fast enough, apparently.
How strong were those little control jets on the Soyuz, actually? Did you get to feel them that much? Were they not very strong, or were they loud in comparison, at least?
No,
Did you hear 'em?
Hardly.
Hardly?
It's more like, to me, it's...
Yeah.
But remember, we had about 4 layers of, you know, with the headphones and the
Yeah.
visor and all that stuff.
Is the Soyuz pressurized when you're in it?
Atmospheric pressure, we maintain, you know, close to 760 millimeters mercury pressure.
So once you got in it, you could take your suits off and that kind of stuff for the 2 days?
Yeah. And our docking was totally automated.
It was just totally,
Mission control.
Now the cosmonauts, astronauts are trained to take control of it if they have to, but
Right.
if everything goes correctly, the computer just takes care of it for them, right?
Nominal is the word.
Nominal.
Yes,
If everything's
NASA loves that
nominal.
word.
Yeah, there you go. I think probably one of the last questions we can get here, were there any parts of the trip that were frightening or that were stressful or...
Just that pressure leak that we had.
Yeah?
My biggest fear, honestly, and I think most flyers would say this, is screwing up.
Yeah.
You do something wrong. And I mean, when I landed, I said, "Whew, thanks, I didn't screw
I
up."
hit the right valve at the right time.
Yeah. But, you know, that air leak was hectic. But, you know, when you're under stress like that, I was so worried about doing the right thing that I didn't have time to be scared.
Yeah.
It was more frightful after, you know, we got down and we, you know,
Kind of have like a
parachute
post-incident
open.
crash almost sort of deal. Like,
Yeah.
But you were trained for it. You
Yes.
knew what was going on. You
Many
knew
times.
what to do. Yeah.
Many times.
All right. So I'm approaching. I forget which ones this is. I don't know if it's the Rasvet or the Poisk or
Piers or
Piers.
Piers.
There's so
Yeah.
many of them. Yeah, I'm not sure which one this one is. But we're just approaching the space station. We would go up with dock with it. We've got little magnet clamps that help things. And again, I'm not explaining what I'm doing here because I think chat would much rather hear from you than hear from me. They see me do this all the time because one of the things I do is teach how to do this.
Yeah.
But for now, we're just kind of coasting on in. And pretty soon we will be docked with the station. And I'm doing it by eye. I'm not the computer. And we're approaching it a half meter per second, which is way too fast, right? But let's see if we can get this done. And Sawyer, we are going to have to start doing a sort of outro here because we are basically done for time.
Yeah, I believe we were only supposed to be here until 2, but so
Yeah,
far
2 o'clock.
they haven't kicked us out yet.
Yeah, they
so.
haven't kicked us out yet. I don't see anybody on the stage behind us. So, but we're just approaching. There's a periscope on the Soyuz, isn't there?
Yes.
I think we have a little fake periscope. That's actually a rover wheel.
Yeah, no, but the commander can see what he's doing, and he also has a video screen.
There's a video
where we
camera.
can see the alignment.
Yeah, because there's like a little indicator on the docking port that shows like the little
Yeah.
not crosshatch, but you know what I'm saying, the little like black and white lines or something.
Yeah,
Yes.
the
To
target.
see if you're
sort of,
aligned.
yeah.
The target, yeah. So I'm not doing any of that. I'm doing this from a third-person view, just completely blind.
Yep.
You know
Did you see
something
the
that's
IVA,
close
by the
enough.
way? Did we see the snacks compartment?
Oh, we didn't. Yeah, I'll get docked and
Yeah,
then
we'll
do
dock,
the
and then
IVA,
we'll
yeah.
compare the inside of this little capsule.
Compare the inside of the. Well, this is made of 3 single-person capsules because we don't have a or a 3-person capsule that's the right kind of form factor.
And the best part is, if people actually want to see the inside themselves, they can come to the Intrepid and see yours here,
They
right?
can.
right.
You can
Yeah.
look right inside. And that's something That's something we're going to try to do later. We've got a mobile camera set up, and we'll see if we can get some time later. I don't know if we can do it this evening or something.
That would be nice. We could just walk around.
We
do a
just
little
walk
tour.
around
Yeah.
maybe and show you some of the exhibits with the camera and broadcast that live this evening. But we've successfully docked. It's a regular Soyuz parking lot up here now.
Yeah.
We've successfully delivered our 3 Kerbals up to the International Space Station. And let's see if we can't look at the IVA. Does this have a snack? This is a little 1-person pod. In kind of our engineering,
Yeah.
we took 3 1-person pods and crammed them together to pretend they were a Soyuz, right? Does this one have a snack container? I think this one may not. Turn to open. You can see all your gauges and everything. You can actually do missions from inside the pod. You can look out the little window and see the parts of the space station. Do I have somebody in the cupola right now, maybe?
The cupola or one of the science modules,
We've got
maybe?
landers.
Now we can transfer
That's-
someone and take a
that's
look at
the
the science
cupola right
module.
there.
Double bonus because
No, that's not the cupola. This is the big,
somebody wants the extra.
one of the big pods. Anyways, it doesn't look like these guys were very prepared to give a tour of their home. They're just all kind of hanging out. But
Or they ate all the snacks. One
they
of
ate
the
all
other.
the snacks. Yeah.
All right.
But
Yes.
thank you so much.
You bet.
That was amazing. I mean, everybody in chat says that it's amazing. We had some excellent questions from chat. It's a very interactive sort of thing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
Thank
taking
you.
the time to come
And,
out.
and there's plenty more
Great.
stories
You
in your
bet.
book too, right?
Absolutely, there are more stories.
Oh
in the
yeah,
book.
lots of stories.
Yeah.
And
So
Yeah.
let's plug the
just
book.
don't forget, don't give up.
Don't
There
give
you
up.
go.
By any
Great
means
advice.
necessary is the name of the book, guys. And that's Greg Olsen. Thank you so much. again,
Thank
sir.
you.
You
I
bet.
appreciate you.
Glad to
All
come.
right.
Oh, it's great to have you.
Stream, we have overstayed our welcome a little bit. You know what I mean? Everybody in chat is saying thank you.
Yes.
Seriously.